Hello everyone, welcome to Ties vs. Dies. Today we'll be going over a Mandela Madness special t-shirt design and technique. We hope that you enjoy the show. Alright, so first let's get into our accordion fold Mandela. And that is going to be on the center of our shirt. And notice here how we are implementing a fan fold. That is where you fold the shirt in equal increments along a guided set line. I call this mapping out your shirt. And right here you can see me doing that just to give you an example of what that consists of. And typically this is going to be what it is whenever you hear me or most people referring to an accordion fold. And so notice here how we are keeping these folds behind our line as even as possible. We want to keep those as symmetric as possible. And this helps not only with the dye absorption later on, but with the ultimate finished result as far as the pattern is concerned. So yeah, so you want to keep these folds as even and as consistent as possible. You don't want them to be too large when you're trying to do a front piece design, unless there's some circumstances that call for that, but typically you're going to want to keep them pretty tight for a design like this one here. And this is going to be a whole front piece Mandela, so that initial washable marker line that we drew, that's going to be just for a point of reference. And so we draw that initial line out, that way we can ensure that the center folds of our Mandela are going to be in that shape and that consistency. And you notice here that I am starting to tie up that initial Mandela, and then we could still keep a reference point with that washable marker line. And notice how I am wrapping maybe once, two, three times and then pulling it tight. You don't want to overly bind your shirt. You just want it to be tight enough to give a good detail line and give a good resist line for your tie-dye project. And I'm using floss here. I believe that floss goes very well when you're using it for your initial binding of your t-shirt. And right here I'm just hitting the rest of the Mandela with 45-degree angles. And so try to remember to keep those folds as even as possible, because that is how the dye absorption is going to take effect. And so we want to keep the lines and the binding as even and consistent as possible. That way at the end of the project we can see a very symmetrical and very good finished result. All right, and so now we're actually getting into the spine of the shirt. And for right here, I wanted to do just a diamond-shaped Mandela for the spine. And so that is what you see me mapping out here. And I'm just doing this on my lap. And I know a lot of people typically tend to be really overwhelming sometimes with their procedures, but I just wanted to show everyone that it is something that can just be done enjoyable and just relaxed in a relaxed setting without too much pressure and without the perfection to really overwhelm things. And so right here you can see me getting ready to bind up the spine, and it's going to be the same thing as for the front of the shirt, excuse me. And that is going to be just bind it up on that line, and then you go ahead and wrap it a couple times, pull it tight but not too tight, and then finish on through down to the center point of that design. And again, so notice how I am keeping those folds, trying to keep those folds as consistent as possible. And that's another thing, as you see me doing here, it looks like I'm doing it pretty fast, but I'm actually taking care to make sure that all of the every time that I'm wrapping the floss around the shirt, we want it to stay as evenly on that same line. So set a target and just continue to wrap around that exact same spot as much as possible, and that is going to give you a even and symmetrical, good looking, sharp finished project. And so again, notice me here keeping these folds as even as possible, trying to keep them as symmetrical as possible and as tight as possible. And what I like to do is I like to just go over them. So I will just set a target of about maybe half an inch, maybe an inch, more than that at times, and then second, I will go back and do the dividing line as you see me doing here. And what I'm doing is just going back over each one of those different little sections, and I'm shooting a 45-degree angle with the floss through there. And I'll come back in after this with sinew and add some sinew to it just to give emphasis on those detail lines and those resist die lines. But for the most part with the floss, these are all just going to be detail lines, smaller detail lines. And so here we go. We're going to get into the Mandela, the half Mandela sleeve rather. And this is both sleeves because we mirror folded our shirt at the beginning of the project. Forgot to mention that. But we always want to, well, not always, but in this instance, we want to start out with a mirror fold. That way we keep that symmetry for the end and keep it looking good and keep it looking sharp. And so when we're doing this, we're actually doing both sleeves here at the same time. And you're going to want to keep that in mind too during the dye application, that you want to go heavy with the dye because you're trying to essentially you're filling up 2 layers of material with dye. So you're going to want to have some patience and go extra heavy on that. And it's the same process here. You know, once you get good at it, you could pretty much just shoot it like this. I do hope that the visuals on this show are a little bit better and a little bit more consistent and easy to follow, a little bit less movement. And right here I am getting ready to do the trip style for the body of the shirt, and that's just grabbing up the rest of the material, putting it in equal folds, that way the dye has somewhere to go and has somewhere to be. And then I'm just bunching it up, and then I'll just wrap that up with floss and then come back in with the sinew, as you can see as I've done here. And so notice the different sinew lines. I went over most of the floss lines with sinew, and that's just to give emphasis and to keep the dye separated when it comes down to it. So, all right, so let's add some dye to this project. And so first we're coming in here with lemon yellow. And typically I like to use the lighter colors first. I recommend doing this. And with the lemon yellow, because it is a lighter color and it does blend and it does flow with most colors, we can go pretty heavy with it, and we don't have to be too precise with the yellow, because when we add these extra colors, it will blend with it and it'll absorb and it'll end up actually making some really cool colors. But so you can see me going over the sections here with that lemon yellow, and I'm trying to go really heavy with it just to make sure that it gets deep into those folds. And then we came in with neon green, that's the green you see here, and then we come in with aquamarine blue. And I just wanted to show you, I kind of did a fast-paced recording of these dye application process, just because I don't think that at this point you need me to go over showing me apply the dye. But just know that I go over each section multiple times, the more the merrier. And really you could feel it in the shirt. Once the shirt gets heavy and once the shirt gets saturated, you'll start to begin to notice dye falling through it, and that's when you could pretty much play with it and kind of ruffle with it and get it to absorb more dye if possible, because you really want to get deep into those folds. And this resist dye technique takes a lot of dye, so don't be intimidated by the amount of dye you're applying. But all right, so here, this is the finished result right here. This is that full Mandela diamond spine, as you can see here. Notice the different colors, those lemon yellows, those aquamarines and cherry reds. And this is the front piece. This is the main part of the shirt right here. This is that full Mandela. And so check that out. Well, this is going to be the end of the video. We hope you enjoyed. We'll be back soon, so take care of yourself. Tie-dye the world. Don't be afraid to get out there and try to do your best. Try to tie-dye, and we will see you soon. We'll see you in the next one. So all right, take care. Tie-dye the world. We love you. Bye-bye.